S&P 500 remains range-bound. Nasdaq comes off the lows, but still has trouble with this key level. Semiconductors close over a major supply. We'll discuss why this happened. Bitcoin continues to build a flag. Rivian continues to push higher. Tesla breaking major support. We'll go over what to watch next. MicroStrategy's up $28. PWM's huge move. We'll go over how we played it and how you yourself can mirror trades like this. Mara and Riot both close at the highs of the day. IEP up 21%. We'll explain why it's crushing shorts. We have a lot to go over. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome back. We have a lot to go over. Now, we just start with the basics. Let's drill into the 15-minute chart and just talk about what exactly transpired today. We can see the run up and then the complete and utter drop on Friday. And it's really important for us to get that we just had this massive drop. There was really no reason for it. People are going to speculate it's because CPI leaked. There's could be a litany of reasons why this happened, but nonetheless, it happened. So mark that level off, and then we just start seeing how we're acting during time, and you can just see overnight, we didn't do too great at that level until we opened. And then look at the open at 9:30 from that level. Up, comes back, retest, classic reversal here. I mean, it's glaring how perfect that was. I think things like this we have to pay attention to, and then you come up and you're trying. Now, did you get anywhere really big? Not really, no. You're still at that 44 level. You're not really getting anywhere, but it does let you know where you could be getting to. Now, we all aware that Wednesday is CPI. Do I think that we're going to see some action tomorrow before then? I think it might be light volume. What I see is a differentiation going on, and we'll discuss that in a moment here. But there's a differentiation going on what's moving, what's not moving. If you look at ES, one of the things I like to do is I have these clouds that I use. I can just kind of take a look at the world and see what's going on. We are above the 20 EMA. We are above my long-term cloud, and the short-term cloud did turn bullish. It's a start. It's not the be-all, end-all. For me, the larger concern is going to be something along the lines of CPI. Now, if you get rid of all of this and we just look at the futures market for what it is, to me, we're setting up an inverse head and shoulders. Now, we never know how this is going to go. We just don't. But you have a left shoulder here. You have a right shoulder here. If, and big if, we see something where you come down and then from here and then you go higher, well, that's going to give us a shoulder. And that's possible tomorrow. We don't have the major data tomorrow that we're going to come out with on Wednesday, but we do have data that we're going to have to watch. And I think that's very important for us to wrap our head around. Now, let's get rid of the private cloud and just drill into ES for a second and talk about this. You can see our level right here, this 4,500, right? And that's something we have to pay attention to. And it is definitely something we will be paying attention to. But 45.12 is on the table. The question is, if we were going to break down and people were worried about CPI, why didn't we? What's the reason why we're not breaking down? Instead of breaking down, we're going the exact opposite way. We're actually expanding. We're actually seeing the breadth increase. And that was glaringly obvious in certain sectors today. But if we look at this, we didn't take out the lower low. If you really just study what happened today, we formed this hammer. So we have a down hammer, we have this up hammer, and all we're really doing is just hanging out there. If we were going to break, today was a perfect day to break and have follow through, and that's not what happened. What was Friday? Was Friday just, we're going to the Hamptons, everybody goes away? I'm not really sure what it was. It could have been something as simplistic as people concerned about Taiwan semis numbers, and we know that they came out exceptional. But see if we got right to that 22, and let me just blow this up for everybody. Got right to that 22. And we held, bounced off of it, and closed back above the 12. We haven't even closed below that 12. And now we're bouncing off that 22. So at the end of the day, I'm very happy with what I see. This could have been a lot uglier, and it wasn't. If we take a look at financials, which are going to have the single greatest move based upon what's going on, clean this all off. And we look at this, rallies up, comes back, Wick City, but we're still pushing higher. Look at KRE. We could have easily rolled and broken down, but we're not. Now, if you look at your moving averages and how we're acting, it's not great, but we're not rolling over. So regionals are holding. All this data is not showing me that we're going to have massive rate hikes that are going to throw off financials. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing that kind of action. And I think that's a very important distinction. Now, this level with the Nasdaq could not have been clearer, in my opinion. But again, for those that are new, I use a 22 and I use a 12. You should use whatever you want, but these are simple moving averages. So we did not close below the 12. We absolutely could have closed below the 12 and the 22 today. And guess what we didn't do? We didn't do that. And now we're starting to see some support come out, and we're going to get into that. But so we're just hanging in there. We easily could have broken, and we didn't. Instead, we just built. And you can see the same kind of pattern setting up here. Now, if we click off, let's click off of this for a second and just talk about this, because there's a couple things going on here. Number one, you have this downward trajectory, and I'm sure everybody else already saw this. So you have this downward trajectory that's there. And I don't see the same here, but we can see this slope. And just for our purposes, we're just going to clone it. And I don't see the same slope there, but what we're going to do is just drop it right here so that you kind of get a sense of where that slope is and where that channel is. And so you look at that and go, okay, well, where are we running into an issue? Well, it seems to me that this breakout has been a battleground. So we broke it and then we came back over it, and that's that 15,173, test, breaks, tries to get over, support becomes what? Resistance, right? Simple enough, not too complex. All right, we have this mapped out now and we have our range. So let's clean all this off for a second, because now we're talking about more mild levels, or levels that people would consider minor. And let's just talk about this major one down here, which starts getting you into that 15,000 range. And look at all this minutia that's in here, and look at how you tried to break Wick City, test that today, Wick. But what can't we get above? And we keep trying over and over again. 15.2 is just a battleground. And every time we're trying to get over that, we're getting these lows. Now, I'm not so sure that that's going to continue, that we're going to keep seeing those lows, but I would watch 15.2 again tomorrow. That's the level we watched today, and that kept us out of more of the mega cap names. Matter of fact, the best trade we had on the mega cap names today was a short on Tesla, but it got us more into the smaller cap names that did exceptionally well. We're going to go over a couple of those here, and the Bitcoin names. But I think it is important for us to just talk about the SOXX. We need leadership. And we're stuck in here, and we were rolling. We were below, and it's really important to understand this. We were below the 12 and the 22 here. We are not below them any longer. We couldn't get above the 500. We are above the 500. So when you drill into this on the hourly, let's get rid of the pre and the post, and let's get rid of all our levels, and this is the SOXX. And we just look at this on the hourly, you have a very nice setup here. And this easily could have broken down, and it didn't. And that's a very important distinction. So if we come straight across here and we look at our trend line, now we went over this on Saturday, and I'm going to be referencing Saturday's video in a couple spots in here, and I'll link that video at the end. Remember, all these videos are somewhat linked together. I follow up on the ideas so you can see how they played out. See that level? See that right there? So head and shoulders don't need to be straight lines. You don't have to have a straight line for a head and shoulder. So if you look at that, you go, okay, well, we should have broken. We should have done a lot of things. We didn't break. Matter of fact, what we did was we come down, we gap filled, tested, and then rallied. Well, what was the strength today? And this is what I think that we need to focus on. In other words, what's going to be the catalyst that's going to keep us moving? Now, Taiwan Semi had earnings, or rather they had revenues. So they come out monthly with their revenues. And you can see right here, 11% fell, January to June, down 3.5%. And we saw a couple things. We saw Taiwan Semi try to rally and not go anywhere. But instead of Taiwan Semi rallying, other stocks rallied because of what Taiwan Semi came out and said. And I think there's a very important distinction here. So you saw Lam Research rally off the bottom, ASML rally off the bottom, KLAC up 11 points today. Micron looks like we bottomed here, trying AMAT. Okay. Not the best, but what are we saying? Well, we're starting to see money pour into the equipment. And if they're going to start going into the equipment names, there must be a reason for that. Right? So that is definitely something that I'm looking at. When I start to see this, when you're breaking down and then you can't hit that lower low anymore, that's something to pay attention to. For example, keep hitting the same area over and over again, and that happens to be a place that was once resistance and it's acting like support. You want to pay attention to that. So we have a situation where Taiwan Semi came out with good news because it was nowhere near as weak as expected, and based upon that, stocks rallied. Now we have a rebalancing that's going on in the Nasdaq, and that's why when we saw something like NVIDIA not be able to move today, that's an issue. And that's something that people are going to look at and they're going to pay attention to. For me personally, I get it. I have a position in it. I'm not crazy about the fact that it's doing this, but we really didn't fall out of bed. We really didn't do a whole heck of a lot. We just kind of traded sideways and we keep fighting the same level over and over again right up here. And until this rebalancing is over, I don't really expect much out of NVIDIA at all. I really don't. I will say this, that the equipment manufacturers look good. Reminder, this week, and we'll go over it as we get closer, you have a conference Wednesday with AEHR, which is a tool company that is a supplier to NVIDIA. Let's drop that in the watch list so I remember to watch that one. And what I want to get at here, and what I think this is important, you're getting to that upper channel and you're unable to break it. So we definitely want to watch that. Whenever you get to an upper channel and you're unable to break it, we want to watch. We want to see how that goes. So we're trying, and then Thursday are earnings. So this is going to be interesting. This will be our next catalyst Thursday night for earnings. And I want to watch this very closely and what they have to say. But I saw a lot of really nice moves in semiconductors today. For me, actually even seeing Micron find a base, there's nothing about that makes me want to jump in it. Maybe if we can start bottoming here, I can get some kind of pattern, but I'm not getting any real volume. So it's not something that I feel the need that I need to jump into. But semis look like they're going to lead. Now Tesla, I'm going to get rid of the 9 here for a moment. And one of the things that we were talking about in the pre-market live today was just that if this broke that 274 level that it was on, and that you could see some selling come in. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. And this played out perfectly for a short. And if you just kind of take a look at the action today, I mean, it's really not that hard to see what happened. But what you do, and I would suggest anybody do this, I always try to tell people to start with like an hourly chart and just start marking your levels and then drilling back down into them. So if you take a look at something like this, and you just start marking off these levels on where you had points where you found some semblance of support, and you start marking those off. Well, once we cracked here, that was it. It was very clear that I bought puts right in here, did very well with them, and then you just watched how it acted, and then you start seeing Wick City, and we know that wicks are price rejection. So whenever you see wicks like this, the short-term amount of the trade might be over. Now, this was beautiful because it rallied right back to that level and gave you another opportunity to short again if you wanted to do that. But I would watch these kinds of names. I would not be chasing this. This looked beautiful to begin with as a long, and all we're doing is backfilling now. So maybe we have to backfill completely, and then we're going to start moving higher. But until we start getting over some of these key levels that are right here, you can see this little trend line right here, I'm sure. Until we start getting through things like that, I think we just need to stay out of the way and focus on names that are actually pushing. One of the names we went over on Saturday, and again, I'll link that video at the end. It's time-stamped, so you can go and look these up. We said on Saturday, I'm not going to go through it all again here and just repeat myself, but if you want to watch it, I will link it at the end. But we talked about this, and we talked about how cheap it was. We've been talking about it, I think, since about 370. In the community, we're in around 340. It's at 407, 408. It might even be up a little bit after hours because Bitcoin keeps moving. But this is a massive base, massive base. You have a year base here and you're breaking out, and all they're doing is walking you up. So I would not throw this out because it's already moved. And I think we're seeing a lot of that from talking to people. People are already saying, oh, a lot of these already moved. That is nothing. If you look at this, you've been basing for a year, over a year. And it's over because we're up over the base for the 4 or 5 days. This is what happens when you come out of corrections. People forget that stocks actually do go higher. And they get caught in these old patterns of just assuming that you're going to get these opportunities again. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. No one really knows, but you have to look at what's happening. And what's happening is straight across, you have this huge base that's playing out very, very nicely. So I would not sleep on this. Mara is another one that we mentioned, and we've been talking about this for some time. You obviously have a much deeper cup, sideways action breaking out, closing at a higher high today. And we can see where we're heading here. I mean, hopefully you can see that. But you're heading towards that 1984 level. Riot seems to be getting their act together, and people are looking for the next one, and they think it is Riot. Now, I like this because the volume's accelerating. If you look at the end of the day, look at the acceleration in volume. It's, of course, all going to be dependent upon what Riot, or what Bitcoin does, rather. And for me, looking at this today, I kind of like what I'm saying because I came right to that 22 and I held and I closed over the 12 when the market closed. Now, where I wind up overnight, nobody knows. But I do like the action in that today. I'm still forming this huge flag. And if you look at that flag and you pull this back, you can see these levels right here pretty clearly. And I'll just pop that in. So you can see how this was support and you can see how that is now resistance. And I think that's very important. Comment below if you like the fact that I go and review other stocks that we've already gone over. I think it's extremely helpful, but I'm always interested in getting your feedback on that. I think it makes sense to follow up a little bit on some of these ideas instead of just moving on to the next idea. CVNA was another one that we went over, and you can see how this is working. You're breaking out again and again, and you have a huge short interest in this. Maybe they got it together. Either way, right now, people seem to think they got it together. So we're starting to see this continually push higher. I do like this name. I actually like Rivian more because I like this a lot. I like this volume that we're seeing here. When we start coming out with volume that exceeds, in my opinion, exceeds any kind of expectations that you might have, that's very appealing to me. And then I've got these gaps. I love having gaps in charts like this where you have so much interest. And then my bad day is going to be a doji. My bad day is going to be this. I'll take that all day long. I mean, it sets you up that, okay, maybe we're a little tired. Maybe we're going to go sideways and then build off of that. There's zero wrong with that. And you're going to have to give these some room. One of the names that we bought recently, it did not look great. And then the next day, this UPST, now we're breaking out again. And you're seeing storied stocks that have gotten it together after years of getting beat up. You're seeing them get it together and you're seeing them push higher. So I would not sleep on those names. I would pay attention to them. I think that there's a lot there that makes a lot of sense. For tomorrow, I would be hyper focused on the SOXX and making sure that the SOXX stays above that key level. I think that's very important. We have to make sure that that happens. As far as other names, I do want to go through this trade because this is really simple and it's something that anybody can do themselves. This was something we were playing around with on Friday in the room, and then pre and post. I just want to walk you through this so you can see where we landed. Okay, that is post Friday. All right. And then look what they do post Friday. So what I'm going to suggest that you do if you ever want to play these high flyers is you mark pre and post. So there you are, and you never made a lower low. All you did was undercut it flush, and then you had zero follow through. Everybody panics, sells to them, they get supply. After they get supply, what do? They rip it, right? That was a clear sign that something was coming. Now, what you use and what we use today to add to it was simple. See these levels up here? That 1933 level? That's one level you could use. The other level that I think is even more important is when you find multiple spots where you have opens and closes. And once you saw that right here, it was on, and then we just saw the push from there, and it gave us a really nice entry into this, and people did exceptionally well with it, obviously. But what I want you to take from this is, if you're going to trade this kind of nonsense, because for lack of a better term, no one's going to convince me otherwise of what this is, that you want to mark your pre and your post highs and lows. It will set you up and it'll give you levels that you can utilize. Let me know if you like when I give these little tips on actual trading ideas. I also think it's helpful when you comment on them. One of the comments was to start doing something live where we answer questions, like maybe one night a month or something like that. That might not be the worst idea in the world. So that's it.